Welcome, Kislay. Um, Slightly overwhelmed after seeing the film to do this conversation. I feel this is a film where for every 10 minutes of the film, we can have a conversation on what it's showing us, telling us. But so, heartfelt thank you as a woman, as an Indian, for making this film. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And thanks to Balance as well, like for screening in Bangalore. I've been wanting to come to Bangalore and screen the film for the Bangalore audience. So yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity.
So, in the credits, we see that this film is inspired by a short story by Brett. How, I don't know, because there's so much. I mean, it's completely, for me, made to an Indian context. And it's not also a film which has come from a spark of an idea. I feel like this is something you have lived with and thought about and written for a long time. So, can you share what that journey has been and how it started?
Yeah, you are right. In fact, Soman and Desai was the cinematographer of the film, so we were in Film Institute together. And so when I had shared this idea with him, and I had said, I don't know about the copyright, it's a black short story, and he said, it doesn't feel like a short story based in Germany. It feels like a very Indian short story. So yeah, in that sense, I related to that short story, which was just about this. Someone discovering, their grandmother through these letters, and how she had changed in a certain while. So immediately the images in my mind were of a very Indian setting, and people or stories I have heard around. So yeah, so that was one part, and I initially wanted to just make a short film of 20 minutes long about this thing. But by then I had done with the Film Institute, and I was in my hometown. I was also touring around UP, and somehow I also wanted to capture that. I also wanted to capture how the city is changing or how the UP was changing. So then I was confused about, it was like there was a definite story, but there was also this feeling which the space was giving me. And somehow when I first wrote the script, it was in a very different way, almost very different treatment. Like a fable sort of a way with a voiceover of certain kind. So very different treatment. But I went back to it after a year or so because I was in FTII and the strike happened, so I got busy with that. And then it completely changed. And then somehow the story of the city and this woman just came together. And somehow for me the family became more important. More in the sense relatively more important, rather than just showing the protagonist or the 74-year-old woman. So yeah, you are right in saying that it evolved in different phases, and it reflects in the concerns of that time.
So, yes, there is one protagonist who's a 74-year-old woman, but I feel like the juxtaposition of her story with her teenage granddaughter and her daughter-in-law. You've shown what women at various ages, what society expects of them, how they're expected to behave. And I think, there's so many small things in the film which it's so sensitive, and which is why I was amazed that, I'm actually, very honestly speaking, that a man has made this film. Because I think there are so many subtle things, like the red bra, for instance. When we were young, it's something we would always think twice about where are we going to wear it and should we wear it. And then the other thing about the stereotypes, that no matter how nice somebody is, everybody gives in to stereotypes. Like the Muslim tailor, he's shown to be so open to this woman coming and doing the tailoring with her, but he's telling her, his own niece, that no, you stop doing this, and kya hai, abhi kar rahi hai kadhai, and after that chali jayegi to jo marzi hai kar legi. But the truth is that after she's married, she doesn't have the marzi anymore still, right? Then there's something else telling her what to do. So again, I'm actually curious about just, you make it sound very simple and natural, but there must be what are the context of, is it something was there a moment which made you change the story? Something, like you said, after the strike, and it changed in terms of treatment?
No, actually not a moment as such, but I keep thinking, that why do social realities feel so complex? as opposed to, a journey of a character on screen for me personally. And I often feel that somehow filmmakers tend to champion their characters too much, like they really want the viewers to fall in love with their uh, with the characters which they are going to spend more time with. And in social reality feels complex because we are always in our shoes thinking from our perspective. So obviously, say I also have some of these memories where I've done some of these things, or not exactly, but I, when I even now, I'll feel like I'll justify myself in some sense. So I wanted to give it that complexity, that you should be able to look at it from each points of view, and in their own way they are justified. So that was one. The second thing was and in that sense, it comes from Brecht. Is like, Brecht will at very crucial places will reveal the contradiction of that character. Like rather than making you empathize with the character for a long time, at certain crucial dramatic moments, sometimes the character will do just the opposite. So with that thing had remained because I was conscious that I wasn't following a standard Brechtian technique. It's a film with a lot of emotions, and you are feeling that kind of empathy. But in terms of character treatment, I was like, that has to be kept in mind. It was
I
playing
think
in
you've
my.
done it really well. I mean, I think we were all shocked when the 74-year-old Mrs. Sharma, she's scolding the parlor girl. Ki, "Kab ja rahe ho?" It's like suddenly we like, what happened? But then you realize that she's also part of the same society and same system. Um, Again, talking about treatment and structure, for me, a very interesting and exciting part is when you use real photographs of the characters from there going back in time. And for me, that's more like a documentary technique or whatever. But is that something that you already knew you were going to do? And how did the actors react to it? I'm sure it was an unusual request for them also.
I mean, so one question while even writing the script was how to evoke the past of Mrs. Sharma, other than the dialogue and people talking about the past and how lovely she was as the wife of Mr. Sharma. And we weren't very sure of using the flashback technique as such, because then we felt that will become an event, like we'll have to show an event, while we wanted to be more generic in a sort of way. So then that point there was a lot of images, which we thought we will do it later, where we will have some old photographs, but only of Mrs. Sharma. I was very sure that it won't come from narrative. It will be a comment on narrative. So that's the documentary part in the sense like I think photographs are used in fictions also, but usually it will be like a character looking at the photograph and then the camera looks at that photograph.
But this is real, right?
Yeah. So, but this is real, and this is like it comes. It's like a director intervening in that narrative. So that I was sure, but I was only thinking of Mrs. Sharma and later on Mrs. Sharma and the young boy Vicky. Only of these two characters. Tanushi, who is the editor of film, she convinced me saying that rather than repeating these photographs of Mrs. Sharma doing different shows at different points of time in the film, and Vicky, we should try and do it with other characters as well. And we had a point, like we discovered emotional points where they can come in.
I think it works beautifully because then even people like Virendra and Sonia became very real people.
Yeah. And that was the good thing about casting was that when we requested the personal photographs of the actors, because they were coming from the same milieu, it wasn't like okay, it's not like a very superstar kind of actor playing a different kind of role, because then it's very obvious in their photograph that they belong to two different classes, the character and the actor. But broadly, I think we were lucky in that that's the thing about casting, that we were casting from the same milieu, and I think it worked because of that.
For me, it worked very well. And so both Somu and Tanushri, who've shot and edited your film, are also familiar names in Bangalore. So I noticed that a lot of places you're holding the shot for a long time, so the camera is staying. And similarly with the edit. So is there a brief that you had given it? I mean, they're also your classmates from FTII, so you work together, but something about while you're on shoot and planning the script?
Yeah, I mean the film was in that sense we had we had really planned it in the sense of like we were sure of the style and the silence we will play out as much as we want. Like we were very sure of that even while writing the script. So in that sense, we stick to that style no matter what, and we had to really struggle because eventually the script was even more longer. So there is a whole part where the sister, the daughter of Mrs. Sharma, comes back to convince her ki what is happening to you.
Priyanka.
Priyanka. And that was me personally was a very, like as a director I was really attached to that part because this is the woman which Mrs. Sharma has trained her in a sense, and she is just emotional. She's not even angry. She's emotional that what has happened. So there was that whole track. So it was even more longer, and we were really struggling what to do. But we were confident that we will stick with the style. We will remove chunks, but we will not edit shots in the sense of removing bits and pieces from here and there. So yeah, and the idea was because of this, that there shouldn't be too much of activity or too much of energy in the frame when we first see Mrs. Sharma. It should develop over a period of time as the film unfolds, rather than seeing her as a bundle of energy or a confident woman or a cute woman or any of those things. The thing was it should let the film unfold, and as through that the character should unfold, and we felt that those silences were as important as the written word. While
Yeah, so I think you answered my question about how much planning you had actually done through the whole thing. It would have been enough if this film was about what women want and their desires, but Kislay also decides to make a political comment on changing society, what's happening to Allahabad, and so I believe he is from Allahabad. Um, so we're coming to I think maybe let's come to the ending of the film, which is, the context of, so first I thought, okay, she's going to Haridwar, but then it seems that actually she's right there and has moved to a society, which only in the second viewing of the film I realized that you'd also shown that same society being built in an earlier part of the film. And I think even the crane picking up the sand is not an innocent coincidence, but to show that so much development is happening. So I was very happy to see that the end is, and this is my interpretation, but I want to hear that she has, in spite of everything, managed to carve a niche for herself and live the way she wants. It may be in a high rise, in a kind of house she's never lived before, in a city which identity has changed, is no longer the city she grew up in, but she's wearing her sari of red roses, she has her plants, and she's happily sipping her chai.
definitely, I mean, we were like it didn't feel right to end on a tragic note. In the sense, say the film could have ended just few shots before when she's leaving and the news plays out and we see the city. But then the whole, I think, again, coming back to Brecht, is that he says, and I've read Brecht a little bit, is that tragedy also, in some sense, is a way of saying that whoever rebels against the society norms meets this kind of end, or meets a sand end.
Yeah.
So in some sense, you reinforce the same norms, And the whole beauty of this character was that she was just doing small things, but in those small things she was changing the whole norms which held that society together. So then to end it at a low point would have been to just justify everything which have happened. On the other hand, obviously, we were looking at it realistically in Allahabad, around Allahabad. So to end on a really high note would also have been, not in sync with that character or in sync with the film. So then we thought, what can be an end which is fully justified, but also looking at the broader reality. Like you can't ignore the broader reality and say whatever in that part of Hindi belt, whatever little space was there, even that is shrinking. So you can't ignore that aspect as well. So then we decided on this, that she has found her space, even if it's a high rise or the usual building.
Thank you. I was holding my breath, and just to see her with the red roses sari having chai, I was like, now the credits can come. Yeah.
So we'll open the floor to questions, and because I'm sure there are lots of questions.
Hi, I really enjoyed the film. So one of the things I noticed was that a lot of the scenes were played from a single angle. You know, the actors just performing, and you didn't cut to close-ups most of the time, at least. So when you were shooting, and how was the process like? Was it very difficult, you know, in terms of working with the actors, rehearsing and staging? Because I'm pretty sure, especially I mean, I don't know if you had taken close-ups or anything, but it becomes extra hard to shoot the film when you're performing. I mean, you're shooting everything from a single angle and trying to get all the emotions right in contrast with each actor's performance with each other. So, how did you prepare for that, and how was the experience?
Yeah, I mean, so staging, I mean, more than acting was also very important. But good thing about long takes is that, once actors get into the rhythm of it, then it just flows. So say the first two, three takes will take a lot of time because they are not sure about the movement and a lot of things have to be coordinated. But once they get into that zone, sometimes they become too comfortable after say 10 or 11 takes, then you have to break that to get that kind of so that was it was difficult initially, but once it starts flowing, then it's about minor corrections here and there. Where we had to really be focused was on the staging part, because the film happen, a lot of film happens interior, indoor area, and I also wanted the staging to convey certain things, the hierarchies within the house, the way it's changing or not changing. So that was like, because with the camera, at what point what character will hide and what point what character will reveal the other character. So these small things. So that was sometimes, but taking a lot of time. But I mean, the shoot was challenging in the sense because it was really hot, and plus we were going really slow because we were taking a lot of takes. But yeah, and acting we had also like once the casting was done very intensively, and secondly we had done a lot of rehearsals, preliminary rehearsals before. So the good thing was that these actors were not really known to each other, but at least on the day one of the shoot, that is the first struggle, is because people are not familiar, and then they have to play out these very intimate. They have to look intimate. So because they had met and we had done a workshop, at least they were comfortable with each other. And obviously, as the film unfolded, it was better for the complex scenes to come later.
Okay, so you've spoken about the creative aspects, but now, I mean, like mounting a film like this, and especially an indie film like this, getting the money itself becomes like a big deal. And I heard about Baleu's like story. So like, what was the production story behind this? I mean, how did you raise the funds, and what are the struggles that you had to go through?
Yeah, actually, very same story. I mean, because it's almost the producer is the same who produced Eva Leu in this film, and same crew. So these are like almost films which are happening like right one after another. So yeah, we were like learning a lot from each other, but that had its own set of challenges, and this film had to look very controlled in that sense, because there were so many considerations into place. So, I mean, so initially I struggled to raise funds for this film because it was appealing to the the usual producers, but they didn't want ऐसे ही kind of a feeling. They wanted the old woman to have a goal. I mean, so they liked their story. They found that this has something, but they were like very clear कि either she should have a crisis like a disease, or she has say a number of days to live, or a goal. And I was very sure that often it's not like I wanted her to suddenly turn an entrepreneur, even in a small sense. कि टिफिन शुरू कर दिया, ये कर दिया. So, and she's doing things which is not like making a statement. She's doing things which maybe she had done earlier, and she's just doing it. And when you ask her, it's essay. So I wanted that kind of ambiguity in place, and that wasn't very appealing to them, or that was my sense. So then finally, a friend only produced it. In terms of having a model in place, I mean that we are still struggling with, and that I was talking to someone, and that like that remains a challenge even now. So there is no model. It's always like you have to balance this factor against that factor, and then see.
हेलो हाय आपकी मूवी में आई आई गो इन इंग्लिश सो द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट केम टू माय माइंड व्हेन आई वाज वाचिंग द मूवी वाज आंखों देखी तो एक मूवी जिसका मतलब बहुत प्रभाव दिख रहा था तो आप कोई और हिंदी या फिर कोई मतलब कंटेम्प्रेरी डायरेक्टर जिनका मतलब इन्फ्लुएंस जिन्होंने आपके मतलब इस को इन्फ्लुएंस किया अपार्ट फ्रॉम ब्रेक
नहीं, हिंदी डायरेक्टर्स तो नहीं, मतलब उतना मैं कंटेम्प्रेरी फिल्म्स नहीं देखी है। पर मेरे दिमाग में जैसे आप म्यूज़िक देखेंगे तो दिस इज़ अ म्यूज़िक फ्रॉम विंटर स्लीप बाय दिस डायरेक्टर कॉल्ड नूरी मिल जेलान। सो उसका कुछ फीलिंग्स दिमाग में थे एंड दैट ऑल्सो हैव लॉट ऑफ एक्सटेंडेड सीन्स। या से कुछ कुछ इट्स लाइक समटाइम्स इन हिज फिल्म्स some time has passed but you don't immediately realize it. You realize it after a certain point in time, which we call it ellipses in cinema. So those techniques were in my mind. Or say sometimes, you know, how suddenly you think that old lady is sitting alone and she moves and there is another person. So I think those influences come from those kind of film viewing, I'll say. बट हाँ, आंखों देखी देखी है मैंने एंड आई ऑल्सो लाइक दैट फिल्म एंड द वे, और जो उसका मिल्यू है आई टोटली रिलेट विथ यू। करेक्ट, हाँ डेफिनेटली। क्योंकि कई बार हमारे दिमाग में भी ऑप्शन था वैसे एक्टर्स कास्ट करने का, बट ऑब्वियसली वो दिल्ली का, ओल्ड दिल्ली का मिल्यू था, ये यहाँ का था। सो डेफिनेटली आई लाइक दैट फिल्म एंड आई एग्री विथ यू दैट इट्स वेरी सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ सेटिंग।
I have a question. I come from documentary background, so I'm very intrigued about certain aspects. Like when she's leaving the mandir, there's an old woman who's sitting and japoing manka. And you pause there and you show her. Then when she's trying to enter the park in another scene, there's another old woman who's being held by a younger girl. I think I already know the answer. You've placed all of them there, right? Or there's no documentary aspect in it that...
It's all placed. I mean, it was also like just while following this character there, one wanted to evoke that what kind of roles are expected from old people.
Or what she might fear will become of her,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, like you know, what the kind of milieu she wants to go against, you know.
What about the cow hitting the bicycle?
No.
And the fruit seller sleeping? He was
Yeah, no, that was placed. That was placed. Cows we couldn't control, so
Chalo,
that
This is very specific. I was just curious, if you were to make the film today, all things aside, would you use AI to get those past photos more into your control, something more specific to you, your film?
no, maybe you know. I think, for example, even now, the photographs are not all photographs are of the actors. You know, certain photographs are of different people, but that's the beauty of editing and film flowing, that you don't see that kind of cheatings. So I mean, not really. I mean, yeah, but maybe I haven't had that kind of technology available to me, so one doesn't know. Maybe I'll see and I'll be like, wow. But abhi to this feels fine.
Hello. Hi. Firstly, a beautiful film, and I just wanted to ask. I'm very curious with like the title called "Aise Hi," and I love like throughout the film how everything that she did was like, you know, "Aise Hi," and did at any point did you feel like maybe there needs to be something more, like you know, should there be a goal, or did that cross your mind at any point?
No, in terms of her not having a goal, that was very clear, because then you keep thinking about it, no? If I give you a goal, then I close your thinking, saying, okay, this is what she wanted and this is what it is. And that is why essay is also ambiguous, because it's not essay and yet she doesn't have an exact answer for it. So it's not like she's lying to people. It's actually essay, but how can she describe what she also don't know exactly? So that was the idea. Yeah, with title we actually struggled. This was earlier called Ajeeb Boodhi Aurat. So so that was the name of the film, and you know, we were like, okay, this is fine, because when titles are catchy, then a lot of people notice it. But then I felt, you know, maybe something more essay will suit it. But it was a lot of discussion, and people like, yeah, kya essay? You know, we had worked so hard and you are calling it ऐसे ही.
But you know, it's a phrase that women use a lot, especially older women. Just. It's exactly because they just want to do things for small pleasures and joy. Yeah.
तो हाँ मतलब वो दिमाग में था कि कैसे बिल्ड करना है या क्या करना है, बट हाँ बट वी वर लाइक अरे ऐसे ही फील्स लाइक यू नो कुछ टाइम नहीं था तो बस बना दिया कुछ. बट या सो दैट वाज इट वाज.
On that note, we'll call it a night. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, IIHS. Thank you, Kislay, for joining us.